The Shadows of Silverston. Chapter 1. The Forgotten Past. I wake up early before the rest of them. It's always the same, every single day. The sky's still dark, not quite morning, and I hear the quiet tapping of rain against my window. This mansion, Silverston Estate, stands tall like a shadow itself, almost a reminder of everything I don't belong to. I'm supposed to be one of them, but I know better. And they do too. 6:30 a.m. My clock blinks on the nightstand, the only thing that seems honest about this house. Time doesn't lie. People do. I get up, dragging myself out of bed, and head straight to the bathroom. The cold water feels like a slap in the face, but it wakes me up, gets me grounded. It's a routine like everything else in my life. Brush teeth, shower, get dressed in this ridiculous uniform for school. Tie my tie with the kind of precision you'd expect from someone whose whole life has been spent playing a role. Except I never remember choosing this role. It's been 2 years since I lost my memory. I don't know who I was before that. All I know is I ended up here in the home of the Silverston family, adopted, they say, but I'm not stupid. I wasn't brought in out of love or kindness. There's something else, something they're hiding from me. I can feel it in the way they look at me. Even my so-called brothers and sisters treat me like I'm a stranger in their midst. But the strangest thing of all? I don't care. I don't feel anything about it. Not fear. Not love. Not anger. It's like the cold outside somehow seeped into my bones. I head downstairs to the dining room. Breakfast is served on a long, polished table, the perfect picture of wealth and privilege. Everything on the table is pristine. The plates, the cutlery, the food, and the people. My family. Good morning, Sajja, my mother says, her voice dripping with false warmth. She's dressed in pearls and a designer outfit, always looking the part of a high society woman, always smiling for the cameras. But behind that smile, she's cold. I can see it in her eyes. Morning, I mutter, taking my usual seat at the far end of the table. The food looks perfect, but I can barely taste it. It's always like this. Across from me, the twins Fom and Ari barely glance my way. They're focused on their phones, probably arranging their next appearance in the media. The world adores them. The perfect daughters, with their long hair and flawless smiles. The princesses of the Silverston family. The same sisters who vanished 3 years ago, only to return like it was nothing. No one asks questions. They act like it never happened. The media called it a miracle. The return of the princesses, they'd said, as if they were royalty. They were gone for 3 years, and everyone just accepted it when they came back like time had stood still. But I know better. I've been counting every second, every day. Big day today. My father's voice booms, breaking the awkward silence. He's seated at the head of the table, the epitome of power. A businessman who turned the family's loss into a gold mine. We've got the fundraising gala tonight for the girls. Donations are pouring in. Everyone's excited. Excited? I almost want to laugh, but I hold it back. I don't laugh anymore. Not since that day. I keep my head down, focusing on my plate. The girls are lapping up the attention, the world celebrating their miraculous return. But I know the truth, or at least I know what the world refuses to acknowledge. There's something off about them, something dark lurking beneath those perfect smiles. I push my plate away, no longer hungry. The house feels suffocating, full of secrets I can't reach. My mother gives me one of her practice smiles, the kind she wears for the public. You'll be attending the gala with us tonight, won't you, Sajja? It would be good for the press to see you supporting your sisters. I shake my head. No, I'm not interested. Her smile falters for a split second before she pulls it back into place. Suit yourself. They think they can control me, but I'm not their puppet. After breakfast, I step outside. The air is cold, sharp against my skin, but I welcome it. The rain has turned into a light drizzle, the gray clouds hanging low in the sky. I walk through the estate grounds, avoiding the main paths, heading for my secluded spot. It's quiet here, away from the eyes of the cameras, the reporters who camp outside our gates, hoping to catch a glimpse of the famous Silverston family. Here, I can breathe. Here, I can think. The truth is, I don't remember much from before I came to this family. Flashes sometimes in my dreams. A woman, pregnant, in pain. I remember healing her, but I don't know how or why. I was different then. Stronger, maybe. There was something more to me than this cold, empty shell I'd become. But every time I try to remember, it slips away like sand through my fingers. I sit down on the damp grass, closing my eyes, letting the sound of the rain and wind surround me. This is where I meditate. I don't know why, but I feel like I need to, like there's something inside me that's waiting to be unlocked. Something powerful. Something dangerous. 2 years ago, I woke up in this mansion with no memory of how I got here. But I know one thing for sure. This life, this family, it isn't mine. There's something wrong with this place, and I'm going to find out what it is. The wind picks up, and for a brief moment, I feel a flicker of something, an energy deep within me, something that's been dormant for far too long. I hold on to the feeling, trying to pull it closer, but it slips away just as quickly. Frustrated, I open my eyes. I'll get it back. I know I will. The power I once had. I can feel it buried beneath the surface. And when I do, they'll regret everything they've done to me. Chapter 2. Shadows of Memory. The rain hasn't stopped for days. It's strange, isn't it? Always drizzling, always this cold, heavy atmosphere clinging to everything like a shroud. I head back to the mansion after spending the early morning out on the grounds. The weather matches my mood perfectly. 8 Uhr morgens. The clock in the foyer chimes as I walk through the doors. A maid nods as I pass by, but I don't say a word. She avoids my gaze. They all do. They know who I am, or at least who they think I am. The mastermind. The cursed one. The boy with no past. I head upstairs, passing the portraits of the family. My family, or so they say. Large, imposing paintings of my parents, beaming with pride. And then there are the portraits of my sisters, hung up like trophies on the wall, forever captured in their supposed perfection. I stop in front of one of the paintings. It's of Andia, the second eldest. She was the first to disappear 3 years ago, on the night of her 16th birthday. I still remember that night. The laughter, the music, the celebration. And then nothing. She was gone. No trace, no sign of struggle. Just vanished into thin air. The others followed soon after, one by one, until all 7 of them were gone. And then they returned, as if nothing had happened. No one could explain it. But I saw the truth, didn't I? I was there. But that part of the story comes later. I step into my room, closing the door behind me. My sanctuary. It's smaller than the others, tucked away in the corner of the house, almost like they wanted to keep me hidden. I don't mind. It gives me space to think. I pull out the leather-bound journal I've been keeping. It's the only way I can make sense of things sometimes. I write everything down. Every strange interaction. Every cold glance. Every hint of the truth that I managed to uncover. But there's one entry that haunts me. 2 years ago. I don't know how I got here. The man they call my father found me, they say. But I don't remember. I don't remember anything. My name is Sajja Silverston now, but it doesn't feel like mine. In this family, they're hiding something from me. I know they are. I flip through the pages, my fingers tracing over the scribbled notes, trying to piece together the fragments of my memory. But it's like trying to see through fog. Every time I think I'm getting closer, the answers slip away. Why did they adopt me? I think closing the journal. Why me? The only thing I know for certain is that I'm different. I've always felt it. This coldness inside me, it's not natural. It's as if something inside me is waiting to wake up. Something powerful. And maybe dangerous. 10 a.m. School time. I make my way downstairs again, where a car is waiting to take me to class. The driver, one of our many servants, keeps quiet as usual. I stare out the window, watching the rain fall against the glass. It's always raining. The school is an elite private academy, full of the rich, the spoiled, the kind of kids who grow up knowing they're untouchable. I'm not one of them. Sure, I'm part of the Silverston family now, but I don't fit in here. I don't fit in anywhere. As I step out of the car, I notice the stairs. They always stare. Whispers follow me through the halls. That's him, the one with the sisters. I heard he's cursed. They say he's the reason they disappeared. I ignore it. It's been like this ever since they returned. My day is uneventful. Classes go by in a blur. No one talks to me, and I don't try to talk to them. I've learned to keep my distance. It's easier that way. People fear what they don't understand, and I've become something of a mystery to them. I sit through math, history, literature. None of it matters. My mind is elsewhere. 3:30 p.m. School ends, and I walk out into the rain again. The car is waiting to take me home, back to the mansion, back to the lie. I'm halfway through the driveway when I feel it, a strange pull like something is calling to me. I stop and look up. The sky is darker than it should be, the rain heavier. Thunder rumbles in the distance. And then I see them, my sisters, all 7 of them, standing at the front door, waiting for me. Their faces are blank, emotionless. I haven't seen them all together like this since the night they disappeared. Sajja, Andia calls out. Her voice is sweet, too sweet. She's always been the ringleader, the one who commanded the others like a queen ruling her court. We've been waiting for you. I take a step closer, the air around me growing thick with tension. They haven't changed a bit since the day they vanished. It's as if time stopped for them. Where have you been? I ask, my voice steady. I can feel the power rising inside me again. That strange energy I've been trying to control. The rain seems to respond to my emotions, falling harder, faster. Thunder cracks overhead. We never left, Andia replies, her smile widening. We were always here. I can feel the lie in her words, but I don't press further. Not yet. There's something they're not telling me, and I need to find out what it is. My father steps out of the house, his arms open wide, welcoming them as if nothing happened. The girls are back, he announces, his voice filled with pride. Our family is whole again. Whole? No, this family has never been whole. Not since I came here. Maybe not ever. I look at them, standing there in the rain, and something clicks inside me. They're hiding something. All of them. And whatever it is, it's connected to me. That night, as I lay in bed, I can't shake the feeling that I'm missing something important. Something just out of reach. The bag. The memory hits me like a bolt of lightning. I had a bag when they found me before I lost my memory. A bag filled with gold, they said, and something else. A small box. My father still has it. He must. But I can't ask him outright. Not yet. The truth is closer than ever, but I need to be careful. They're watching me, waiting for me to make a move. And when I do, everything will change. But for now, I pretend. I play the role of the perfect son, the perfect brother. Because I know that beneath the surface, the real story is just beginning. Chapter 3. The Return of the Shadows. Days blur into each other, but the rain never stops. It's always there. Drizzling in the morning, pouring by noon, a constant companion to the eerie tension that's thickened the air since my sisters returned. It's as though the world itself knows something is wrong, and it's weeping for the truth that no one dares to speak. I sit by the window in my room, watching droplets snake down the glass like tears. My reflection stares back at me, hollow and cold. It's been 3 years since their disappearance, but their faces haven't aged a day. They're the same as when they left, frozen in time. But I've grown, and the gap between us has become more than just physical. It's something deeper, something darker. It's late, almost midnight. The house is unnervingly quiet, save for the ticking of the old grandfather clock in the hallway. I can't sleep. I haven't been able to since they came back. My mind races, endlessly replaying the last time I saw Andia. That night in her room, the words she whispered to me before she vanished still haunt me. I get up and head downstairs. The rest of the house sleeps, unaware of the storm brewing in my mind. The kitchen is dimly lit, a soft golden glow spilling from the old-fashioned lamp hanging above the island. I pour myself a glass of water, staring at the darkened windows, the rain hammering against them as if it's trying to break in. As I take a sip, the silence breaks. Footsteps. Soft, deliberate. I tense, turning my head slightly to see Fom standing in the doorway, her hair wet from the rain, even though she hasn't been outside. I don't question it. Not with her. Not anymore. You're awake, she says, her voice barely louder than the rain. So are you. She doesn't respond immediately, just walks over to the window, watching the downpour like I had been. There's something unsettling about the way she stands there, like she's not really in the room, like she's not really here. You've changed, Sajja, she says after a long pause. I don't answer. She's right. I have changed, but not in the way she thinks. You used to follow us everywhere, she continues, her back still to me. Do you remember? I do, but I don't want to. I put the glass down on the counter and lean against the cool marble surface. What are you trying to say, Fom? She finally turns to look at me, her eyes shimmering in the dim light, full of something I can't quite place. You're different now. You're colder. It's like you're hiding something. I meet her gaze evenly. Aren't we all? Her lips twitch into a half smile, but it doesn't reach her eyes. Maybe, but you more than the others. There's a long, tense silence. I'm about to ask her what she's really getting at when she steps closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. What if I told you that we never left? The words send a chill down my spine. I straighten, my heart thudding in my chest, but I don't let it show. What do you mean? We were here the whole time, she says, her eyes boring into mine. In the house, in the shadows, watching. A strange, unsettling feeling crawls up my skin. I can't tell if she's lying or telling the truth. With Fom, it's always hard to know, but something in her tone makes me believe her, or at least consider the possibility. Why would you hide? I ask, my voice cold, guarded. Why disappear for 3 years? Let the world think you were dead. Her smile fades, replaced by something darker. We had no choice. We were trapped, in a place between here and somewhere else. I narrow my eyes. Somewhere else? What are you talking about? She takes another step closer, and I can feel the air shift around her like the room itself is reacting to her presence. You've forgotten, haven't you? She whispers, her breath warm against my ear. You've forgotten who you really are. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. I take a step back, breaking the strange hold her presence had on me. My mind reels, trying to make sense of what she's saying. Forgotten who I am? No, that's impossible. I was adopted by this family 2 years ago. I was found by their father. I lost my memory. That's the truth. That's what I know, isn't it? I don't know what you're talking about. I say, my voice colder than I intended. You're playing games, Fom. I'm not interested. She tilts her head, studying me with a strange intensity. You will be. Soon. When the time comes, you'll remember everything. And when you do, you'll realize why we've been watching you. Before I can respond, she turns and walks out of the kitchen, disappearing into the shadows of the hallway like a ghost. I stand there, my heart racing, trying to make sense of her cryptic words. But nothing makes sense anymore. The next morning, everything is back to normal. If normal is even a word I can use anymore. The mansion is bustling with activity. Maids preparing breakfast, my parents sitting at the table, reading the news like any other day. My sisters, all 7 of them, are back to their usual routines. Smiling, laughing, pretending, just like they always do. I sit at the far end of the table, silently eating my breakfast, my mind still replaying the conversation with Fom. Did I imagine it? No, it was real. But what does it mean? The girls are chatting about an upcoming event, a charity gala, of course. The Silverston family has an image to maintain. Always the perfect family. Always giving back to the community. But behind closed doors, it's all a lie. I can see it in the way my parents glance at each other. The tension between them barely masked by their public smiles. They're hiding something from me. I've always known it, but now, with Fom's words echoing in my mind, I realize it's bigger than I thought. As breakfast winds down, my father looks up from his newspaper, his eyes settling on me for the first time in what feels like months. Sajja, I need to speak with you after school. It's not a request. It's an order. I nod, not trusting myself to speak. My father has never been an affectionate man. He's always kept his distance, even more so since the girls disappeared. But now there's something different in his gaze. Something calculating. The rest of the day passes in a blur. School is the same as always. Silent stares, whispered rumors, and a few more pointed questions from classmates who think they're being clever. But I don't care. Not anymore. All I can think about is what my father wants to say. What he knows. It's evening by the time I get home. The rain has stopped for once, but the air is thick with humidity, making it feel like a storm is just waiting to break. I find my father in his office, the door slightly ajar. I hesitate for a moment before pushing it open. He's sitting behind his desk, his eyes fixed on a small wooden box in front of him. The box. The one I've been trying to remember. The one that was in the bag I had when they found me. He looks up as I enter, his expression unreadable. Sajja, he says, his voice calm. There's something I need to tell you. I sit down, my heart pounding in my chest. I don't say anything, waiting for him to continue. You're not who you think you are, he says after a long pause. And neither are we. The words hang in the air between us, heavy with the weight of a truth I've been chasing for years. Who am I? I ask, my voice barely more than a whisper. He opens the box, revealing a strange, glowing object inside. It pulses with a soft light, almost as if it's alive. This belongs to you, he says. It's the key to everything. I reach for the box, my hand trembling. As my fingers brush the surface of the glowing object, a surge of energy floods through me, and suddenly, I remember. Everything. Chapter 4. The Key to the Past. The moment my fingers touched the glowing object, a wave of memories flooded back. Memories I'd buried deep. Memories I didn't even know were mine. I see flashes of a life before this one. A grand temple, a swirling vortex of magic and power. Power unlike anything I had ever felt. I was a traveler between worlds, between dimensions. The truth hits me with a force so strong, I almost fall back in my chair. I'm not their son. I was never meant to be part of this family. They took me in because they saw an opportunity, not out of love or kindness. The wealth, the school, the mansion, all of it exists because of me. I look up at my father, my real thoughts hidden behind a mask of indifference. He watches me closely, his eyes narrowing as though he can sense the shift in me. But I won't give him the satisfaction of knowing how much I've remembered. Why now? I ask, my voice steady. Why are you telling me this? He leans back in his chair, his fingers steepled beneath his chin. Because you're old enough now. Strong enough? I'd imagine. It's time you understand the weight you carry. What's at stake? I nod, trying to process everything. Old enough? Strong enough? What did he mean by that? There's a part of me that wants to lash out, to demand the truth of why he kept me in the dark for so long. But that would be too easy, too obvious. Instead, I let the silence hang between us. He clears his throat, reaching for the small wooden box again. This object is part of who you are. I kept it because, well, let's just say I didn't think you were ready for the truth. I resist the urge to laugh. The truth? He wouldn't know the truth if it was staring him in the face. And yet, I can't deny the object's pull on me. It hums with an energy that feels both familiar and foreign. You think I'll be able to do something with this? I ask, my voice cold, distant. His lips curl into a thin smile. Yes, I know you will. I take a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm. There's no point in fighting him now. I have the key. I have my memories, but I need more answers, more time to understand what I've remembered. With the box tucked under my arm, I leave the office, walking through the dimly lit hallway towards my room. The house feels suffocating, like it's closing in on me. The whispers of my past swirl in my mind, blending with the present in a confusing haze. I need to get out, to think, to breathe. Later that night, I stand by the window in my room, watching the rain return, tapping lightly against the glass. The weight of everything is almost too much to bear. I remember it all now. How I healed their mother when she was pregnant. How I saved them from a fate they never even knew existed. They don't deserve my loyalty. They never did. But as much as I want to confront them, my parents, my sisters, I can't. Not yet. There's still too much I don't know. Too much that's unclear. I glance down at the wooden box on my desk, the soft glow from the object inside casting faint shadows around the room. This box is the only connection I have to my past, to the life I lived before I was dragged into this twisted family. But even with the memories flooding back, I feel lost, fragmented. Who am I really? The next morning, I go through the motions of a normal day. I wake up before dawn, train as usual in the secluded part of the mansion's garden where no one can see me. The physical exercises help, but it's the meditation that I crave most. It's the only thing that brings me closer to the spiritual powers I lost long ago. The air is thick with humidity, the remnants of last night's rain still hanging in the sky. I settle into a familiar routine, stretches, breathing exercises, then a dive deep into the quiet of my mind. But today is different. Today, I feel something stir within me, a spark that had been dormant for too long. It's faint, barely noticeable, but it's there. My powers are returning. I push harder, focusing on the energy I remember so vividly from my past life. It's slow, agonizing, like trying to recall a language I haven't spoken in years. But I know it's there, just out of reach. As I focus, the air around me shifts. The leaves rustle in the trees above, and a faint hum of power vibrates through the ground beneath me. I can feel the pulse of the earth, the rhythm of the universe aligning with my breath. I'm close, so close. After training, I head inside for breakfast. My sisters are already at the table, laughing and talking as if nothing has changed. As if they didn't just reappear after 3 years like nothing had happened. I sit silently in my usual spot, watching them. They're all dressed impeccably, as always, playing their roles as the perfect daughters. But I can see the cracks in their facade. The way they steal glances at me when they think I'm not looking. The tension that hangs in the air whenever I'm in the room. They know I'm different now, stronger. They can feel it, just like I can feel their own power simmering beneath the surface. I take a sip of my coffee, my eyes meeting Andia's across the table. She gives me a small smile, but there's something off about it. Something too rehearsed, too perfect. She knows more than she's letting on. They all do. Have you been practicing, Sajja? She asks, her voice sweet, almost mocking. I raise an eyebrow, pretending not to understand. Practicing what? Your magic, she says, her smile widening. You used to be so good at it. The others giggle softly, but I don't react. I simply finish my coffee, setting the cup down with a deliberate slowness. What do you know about magic? I ask, my tone icy. Her smile falters for a moment, but she recovers quickly. Oh, nothing. Just curious. I lean back in my chair, studying her. Is that why you disappeared for 3 years? To work on your magic. The table goes silent. The laughter dies down, and all eyes turn to me. Andia's smile fades completely now. We told you we never disappeared. We were here the whole time. I can feel the lie in her words, the way it twists the air between us. They weren't here. They were somewhere else. And whatever happened to them during those 3 years, it changed them. I stand up from the table, not bothering to excuse myself. As I walk away, I hear Andia's voice behind me, soft but clear. One day, you'll remember. And when you do, it'll all make sense. I don't turn around. I don't need to. I already know more than they think. But there's still one thing I need to find, one piece of the puzzle that's missing. The small box. In the days that follow, I continue to train, pushing myself harder than ever. My powers are returning slowly, but with each meditation, I can feel the strength building inside me. It's only a matter of time before I'm back to my full potential. The girls avoid me for the most part, though I can sense their eyes on me whenever I'm in the same room. They're watching, waiting for something. But I'm watching them too, and I know they're hiding something, something big. My parents are no different. My father continues with his business, acting as if nothing is wrong, while my mother busies herself with the school. But I can see through their charade. They know more about my past than they're letting on, and they're afraid of what will happen when I figure it all out. But they won't have to wait long. It's a stormy evening when I decide to confront them. The rain pounds against the windows as I make my way down the hallway to my father's office. The house feels eerily quiet, as if it's holding its breath, waiting for the inevitable confrontation. I push open the door without knocking. My father looks up from his desk, his expression unreadable. "Sajja," he says calmly, folding his hands in front of him. "What brings you here?" I don't waste time with pleasantries. "The box. Where is it?" His eyes flicker with something. Fear, perhaps, but he quickly masks it with a neutral expression. "What box?" "You know exactly what I'm talking about," I say, my voice cold. "The one you took from me when you found me." He stands up slowly, his movements deliberate. "That box is dangerous, Sajja. It's better if you forget about it." I take a step forward, my fists clenched at my sides. "You don't get to decide what I remember." The tension in the room thickens, the air crackling with the storm outside. My father watches me carefully, but I can see the truth in his eyes. He's afraid of me, and he should be, because I'm starting to remember everything. The rain had stopped by the time I returned to my room, but my mind was far from clear. As I sat on the edge of the bed, my thoughts drifted back to the box. The one my so-called father had refused to reveal. There was something in there, something he feared, and fear was always a sign of the truth hiding beneath the surface. But there was more than just the box, more than just the tangled mess of lies that held me to this family. My memories were still fragmented, like scattered shards of glass, but one piece of the puzzle was starting to take form. It wasn't just the girls. It wasn't just the family I had saved. There was someone else, someone I had lost a long time ago. The next morning, I found myself sitting in class, staring out the window as the sun broke through the clouds. The teacher's voice droned on, but I wasn't listening. My mind was elsewhere, fixated on the faint memory of a boy, someone important, someone I had left behind. "Hey, are you even paying attention?" A voice whispered beside me. I turned my head slightly, glancing at the girl sitting next to me. Her name was Nyla. She was one of the more outspoken students in the class, always quick with a comment or a joke. But there was something else about her, something I hadn't noticed until recently. It was faint but unmistakable, the same spiritual energy that had been haunting my memories. "No," I replied bluntly, turning back to the window. She snorted, leaning closer. "Figures. You're always off in your own world. Must be nice." I didn't respond. I wasn't in the mood for small talk. But something about her energy tugged at me, a strange familiarity I couldn't place. It was as if her presence stirred something deep inside me, something I had long forgotten. Later that day, as I walked home from school, Nyla caught up with me. I had been avoiding her since lunch, but she was persistent. "You've been acting weird lately," she said, falling in a step beside me. "Weirder than usual. I mean, I didn't realize you were keeping track," I muttered. She ignored the jab. "Seriously though, is something going on?" I glanced at her, studying her face. She looked genuinely concerned, but that wasn't what bothered me. It was the energy radiating off her. The more time I spent around her, the stronger it became. It reminded me of someone. Before I could respond, a voice called out from behind us. "Nyla, wait up!" We both turned to see a boy running towards us, his dark hair disheveled from the wind. He skidded to a stop in front of us, catching his breath. "Thought I lost you back there," he said, grinning at Nyla. Nyla rolled her eyes. "You're always running late, Kieran." The boy, Kieran, looked at me for the first time, and for a moment I saw something flicker in his eyes. Recognition? No, it couldn't be. But as we stood there, something in the air shifted. His energy, it was the same as Nyla's, the same as the faint memories lingering at the edges of my mind. "Hey, Sajja, right?" Kieran said, offering a hand. I stared at it for a moment before shaking it. His grip was firm, his energy strong. Too strong. "Yeah," I said slowly. "Do we know each other?" Kieran's smile faltered for a split second, but he recovered quickly. No, I don't think so. But we're in the same class. I narrowed my eyes, studying him closely. There was something off about him, something he wasn't saying. And then it hit me. The way his spiritual energy felt so familiar, so connected to something I had lost. My head throbbed with the force of the memory trying to break through. I had felt this energy before, years ago, in another life, in another dimension. This boy, he was connected to me, to my past. But how? I turned away, suddenly overwhelmed. I have to go. Without waiting for a response, I walked off, my mind racing with questions. How did Kieran and Nyla fit into my past? Why did their energy feel so familiar, so intertwined with my own? That night, the dreams returned. Vivid, disjointed flashes of a world beyond this one. A temple, glowing with ancient power. And a boy, no, not just any boy. My brother, the one I had left behind, the one who had been searching for me. I jolted awake, my heart racing. It was him, Kieran. My brother had found me. But why now? Why? After all these years, had he chosen to reveal himself? And why hadn't I remembered him sooner? As the questions swirled in my mind, I knew one thing for certain. I had to confront him. I had to know the truth. The next day, I cornered Kieran after school. He was waiting for Nyla by the gates, but when he saw me approach, his expression shifted. Sajja, he said cautiously. What's going on? I didn't bother with pleasantries. You're not just a classmate. You're my brother. His eyes widened, and for a moment, he looked like he was going to deny it. But then he sighed, running a hand through his hair. I was wondering when you'd figure it out, he muttered. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I demanded, my voice low and cold. Kieran glanced around, making sure no one was listening. Because I wasn't sure if you'd remember. You told me not to use my powers to find you. You said you'd contact me when you were ready. I clenched my fists, anger bubbling beneath the surface. That was before I lost my memory. You should have known something was wrong. He shook his head. I didn't know where you were. And by the time I realized you had forgotten everything, it was too late. I've been looking for you for years, but I didn't want to draw attention to myself or to you. I stared at him, trying to process everything. My own brother had been living right under my nose, and I hadn't even realized it. And then something else clicked. Nyla, I said slowly. She's your daughter, isn't she? Kieran nodded, his expression softening. Yeah, she and her brothers are your classmates. I settled down after I lost contact with you. I thought it was the safest thing to do. I looked away, my mind spinning. So many pieces were falling into place, but there were still so many questions. Why had he waited so long? And why did Nyla's energy feel so familiar, like a part of my own? Why now? I asked finally. Why reveal yourself now? Kieran sighed. Because I could sense that your powers were starting to return. And Nyla, she's been picking up on your energy too. She doesn't know who you really are, but she's been drawn to you ever since you started remembering. I nodded slowly, understanding. The connection between us was undeniable, but there was still one thing that didn't make sense. What about the girls? I asked. My sisters. They're not who they say they are they? Kieran's expression darkened. No, they're not. They're dangerous, Sajja. They've been after you for years. They're the reason you lost your memory in the first place. I felt a chill run down my spine. The 7 sisters, the ones I had saved, the ones I had lived with all these years, they were the very enemies I had been trying to escape. And now, they were closer than ever. Chapter 6. Threads of Deception. The sky was overcast the next morning, a dull gray that seemed to reflect the storm brewing inside my mind. The wind rustled through the trees as I stood at the window, staring out into the distance, lost in thought. Kieran had told me so much the night before, yet there was still so much I didn't know. My mind was a battlefield, torn between the fragmented memories of my past and the reality I was living in now. How could I have been so blind? How could I not have realized that the very people I had lived with for years, the ones I called family, were my enemies? I felt a wave of nausea as the truth settled in. The girls, my so-called sisters, had been after me all this time. They had trained me, tortured me, and all the while, they were hiding their true intentions. But why? What were they waiting for? And then there was the box, the one my father had hidden. It wasn't just a simple trinket, something to be forgotten. No, it was the key to unlocking everything. I barely made it through the day. School felt like a blur, a series of meaningless events that passed by without my noticing. Kieran avoided me, probably sensing that I needed time to process everything. Nyla, on the other hand, seemed more curious than ever, her eyes constantly watching me, searching for answers I wasn't ready to give. By the time I got home, the tension in the air was palpable. My parents were in the living room, speaking in hushed tones. They glanced up as I entered, their smiles stiff and unnatural. Sajja, my mother said, her voice a little too bright. How was school? I shrugged, heading for the stairs without a word. We need to talk. My father's voice called after me, halting me in my tracks. I turned slowly, meeting his gaze. There was something different about him today, something guarded. What about? I asked, my tone cold. He hesitated for a moment, exchanging a glance with my mother before speaking. We've been worried about you. You've been acting distant lately. Is something wrong? I wanted to laugh. Of course, they were worried, but not because they cared. They were worried I was starting to remember. They were worried that their carefully constructed web of lies was beginning to unravel. I'm fine, I said, turning away again. Sajja, my mother called out, her voice softer now, almost pleading. We love you. You know that, right? The words felt like poison, twisting in my gut. Love? They didn't know the meaning of the word. Everything they had done, their fake smiles, their hollow words, it was all an act. For the world, for the cameras. They had never loved me. They had used me, manipulated me, and now they were trying to tighten their grip. I didn't respond. I didn't trust myself to speak. Instead, I climbed the stairs to my room, shutting the door behind me. I leaned against the door, breathing deeply as I tried to calm the storm raging inside me. Later that night, as I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, a knock on the door interrupted my thoughts. Come in, I muttered, already knowing who it was. The door creaked open, and Nyla stepped inside, her expression uncertain. She hesitated by the door, looking like she wasn't sure if she should be there. What is it? I asked, sitting up. She closed the door behind her, stepping closer. I know something's going on, and I think I deserve to know what it is. I raised an eyebrow. Deserve? She crossed her arms, her expression determined. Yes, I've been feeling something ever since I met you, and it's only gotten stronger over the past few weeks. I know there's more to you than what you're letting on. I sighed, running a hand through my hair. You wouldn't believe me if I told you. Try me. For a moment, I considered it, telling her everything. The truth about who I was, about the sisters, about Kieran. But something held me back. The fear that once the truth was out, everything would spiral out of control. I don't know who I am, I said finally, my voice low. I've lost my memories. And every day, it feels like pieces of me are coming back, but they're not the pieces I want. She frowned, stepping closer. You've lost your memories? Since when? Since I was a kid. Before I came to this family. Before all of this. I gestured vaguely around the room. I don't even know how I got here. Nyla sat down on the edge of the bed, her gaze softening. That's why you've been acting so strange. I nodded. I'm starting to remember things. Things that don't make sense. She was quiet for a moment, processing everything. Then she asked, Does this have something to do with my father? I looked at her, startled. What do you mean? She shrugged, looking away. He's been different lately. He won't tell me why, but I know he's hiding something. I bit my lip, unsure of how much to reveal. Your father is my brother, I said quietly. Her eyes widened. What? We were separated years ago. When I lost my memories, I lost contact with him. He's been looking for me ever since. She shook her head, trying to comprehend it all. But why didn't he tell me? Because he didn't want to draw attention to me. He didn't want to risk exposing me to them. Them? She echoed. The sisters, I said, my voice barely a whisper. They're not who they say they are, Nyla. They're dangerous. They're the reason I lost my memories in the first place. Nyla stared at me, shock written all over her face. You're serious. I nodded grimly. And now that I'm starting to remember, I'm afraid it's only a matter of time before they come for me again. The next few days passed in a blur. I kept my distance from the family, staying out of the house as much as possible. I didn't trust myself to be around them, not now that I knew the truth. But as the days wore on, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to happen. The tension in the air was thick, suffocating. And every time I caught a glimpse of the girls, their eyes seemed to linger on me a little too long, as if they knew something was changing. It all came to a head one evening, just after dinner. My parents had gone to bed early, leaving the house eerily quiet. I was sitting in the living room, flipping through a book, when I felt it. A presence. Dark, suffocating, and all too familiar. I stood up, my heart pounding in my chest as I turned to see the 7 girls standing in the doorway, their expressions unreadable. We need to talk, Fom, the eldest, said, her voice cold and detached. I narrowed my eyes, taking a step back. About what? She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. About who you really are. Chapter 7. Unveiling Shadows. I stood frozen, every muscle tense as Fam's words lingered in the air. The girls, my so-called sisters, gazed at me with unnerving calmness, their eyes shimmering with something dark, something ancient. About who I really am? I echoed, my voice steady, though my heart was pounding in my chest. What are you talking about? Milanda, one of the quieter ones, stepped forward, her delicate features twisted into a cruel smirk. Don't play dumb, Sajja. You felt it too, haven't you? The memories clawing at the edges of your mind. You're not one of us. You never were. I clenched my fists, not out of fear, but frustration. I had already begun piecing things together, thanks to Kieran and Nyla. The family, this house, this charade, it had all been a lie. But hearing it from them, from the ones who had tormented me for years, made my blood boil. And what exactly am I then? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper, daring them to reveal the truth. Suran, always the most impatient, huffed in annoyance. You were never supposed to be part of this family. You just showed up one day, confused and helpless, and our parents, those fools, decided to keep you. Keep me? I felt a sharp sting in my chest, but I didn't let it show on my face. Instead, I kept my eyes fixed on them. What am I? A stray? A tool? Both, Andia replied coolly. You were a means to an end. You brought wealth to this family, didn't you? You don't even remember how, but you did. That bag of gold you had, it built our empire. There it was, the confirmation of my suspicions. I had come to this family with nothing but a bag of gold and the shattered remnants of my memory. And they had taken it all. My life, my identity. And what did you give me in return? I asked, bitterness seeping into my words. A home? A family? Or was it the endless torment of your training? Training, Fam repeated, stepping forward, her face calm, but her eyes cold. That's exactly what it was. We needed you strong, Sajja. We needed you to be more than just a lost boy. You had to become something greater. Greater? I laughed bitterly. By breaking me? By treating me like a slave? Her lips curled into a thin smile. It was never personal, Sajja. You were just a tool, a key to unlocking something much bigger than any of us. I took a step back, my mind racing. Their words swirled in my head, each one confirming what I had begun to fear. I had been used, manipulated, and discarded by the very people who were supposed to be my family. But why? What are they after? What do they want from me? You're lying, I muttered, my voice trembling with a mix of anger and confusion. This is just another game, another way to mess with my head. Do we look like we're playing games, Sajja? Coover asked, her voice low, her eyes narrowing. I studied their faces, each one cold, distant, and calculating. No, they weren't playing games. They were dead serious, and that scared me more than I was willing to admit. But fear was not an option. Not now. Not when I was so close to the truth. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm. Then tell me everything. No more cryptic nonsense. No more lies. Who am I? For a moment, the room was silent. The tension thickened, wrapping itself around us like a suffocating fog. Finally, Fam spoke. You are the reason we exist, she said quietly, her eyes locked on mine. You're the one who created us. You gave us life, Sajja. Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. I stumbled back, my mind spinning. What? What are you talking about? Milanda let out a soft laugh, shaking her head. Oh, Sajja, you really don't remember, do you? You brought us into this world. You saved us. Saved you. My voice cracked, disbelief coursing through me. I don't understand. I don't even know who I am. You're a powerful being, Andia said, her voice calm, almost soothing. One who was capable of great things before you lost your way. You saved us long before we were born. You saved our mother and, in doing so, cursed yourself. Enough, I snapped, taking a step forward, my fist clenched. Stop talking in riddles and tell me the truth. The girls exchanged a glance, and for a moment, I saw something in their eyes, hesitation, perhaps even fear. But it was gone as quickly as it appeared. You are our creator, Fam repeated, her voice steady. And we are your punishment. I couldn't sleep that night. My mind was a whirlwind of thoughts, each one more disturbing than the last. The words of my sisters, if I could even call them that, echoed in my head, haunting me. You are our creator, and we are your punishment. What did that even mean? How could I have created them? I was just a boy, wasn't I? I lay awake, staring at the ceiling as the hours ticked by. Outside, the wind howled, and the moon cast an eerie glow through the window. The house was silent, save for the occasional creak of the old wooden floorboards. As I drifted in and out of restless sleep, my thoughts kept returning to one thing: the box. The small, mysterious box that my father had hidden away. The box that only I could open. It had to hold the answers. It had to contain the truth. But where was it? The next morning, I was out of the house before anyone else was awake. The sky was gray, clouds hanging heavy in the air, threatening rain. I didn't care. I needed answers, and I needed them now. I walked through the quiet streets, my mind racing. The city felt different today, darker, more oppressive. Or maybe it was just me, slowly unraveling as the weight of everything I had learned pressed down on me. As I approached the school gates, I saw Nyla waiting for me, her arms crossed, a concerned expression on her face. "Hey," she said as I walked up to her. "You look tired." I shrugged. I didn't sleep much. She fell in a step beside me as we made our way to class. "You okay? You seem off." I glanced at her, debating whether to tell her everything. But something held me back. Nyla was smart, and she was starting to figure things out on her own. But this was too much. Too dangerous. "Are fine, Elid?" She didn't look convinced, but she didn't press the issue. We walked in silence for a while before she spoke again. "Kieran's been asking about you," she said, her voice cautious. "He wants to talk." My stomach twisted. I hadn't seen Kieran since that night, and part of me wasn't ready to face him. Not yet. Not when there were still so many unanswered questions. "I'll talk to him later," I said quietly. Nyla didn't say anything more, and we spent the rest of the walk in silence. But as we entered the school, I couldn't shake the feeling that things were about to get much worse. As I awaited the storm that was coming, the storm that had been brewing for years, ever since I first lost my memory. My sisters, my family, the lies, and the truth. All of it was coming to a head, and I wasn't sure if I was ready for what was about to be revealed. Chapter 8. The Burden of Memory. The next few days passed in a blur, each one blending into the next. The weight of my sister's words lingered like a shadow over my thoughts, making every interaction, every moment, feel like it was building towards something inevitable. Something terrible. I couldn't shake the feeling that the walls were closing in around me. Mornings became a routine. I'd wake up in the dim light before dawn, throw on the same wrinkled school uniform, and slip out of the house before anyone could stop me. My appetite had vanished. Food tasted like ash, and the thought of sitting down at the breakfast table with them, the so-called family, made my stomach turn. I had no desire to speak to any of them, least of all my parents, who seemed blissfully unaware of the growing tension in the house. If they were hiding something, they were doing a damn good job of pretending otherwise. My father went about his work, managing the online academy they had built from the wealth I had unknowingly provided. My mother still carried that false warmth in her voice, talking about expanding the business, putting on that public face they had perfected long ago. But there were cracks in the facade. I could see it in the way they avoided looking at me for too long, the way they dismissed any mention of the past. The conversations around the table were shallow, empty. They never talked about the years my sisters had vanished, and they never asked about the night I supposedly created them. Created them. The thought still made me shudder. How could I create life? What kind of being was I, really? What was the truth that had been buried along with my memories? Kieran and Nyla kept their distance, though I could sense them watching me closely. Nyla, especially, had been unusually quiet. She knew something was wrong. She could always tell when I was carrying a burden too heavy to share. But I wasn't ready to let her in yet. I wasn't ready to face the full truth of what I might uncover. I spent more time at school than I ever had before, hiding in the library during breaks, avoiding my classmates as much as possible. It was easier this way, to focus on the mundane aspects of my life and pretend, just for a few hours, that things were normal, that I was just an ordinary boy. By the end of the week, the tension became unbearable. The house had become a prison, and I found myself pacing my room late at night, unable to sleep. My mind kept circling back to that damn box, the one my father had hidden away. I needed to find it. I needed to know what was inside. I knew it held the answers, but every time I thought about confronting him, a chill ran down my spine. I wasn't ready to face him yet. Instead, I found myself drawn back to the basement. The same basement where my sisters had trained me, where they had pushed me to my limits, tormenting me under the guise of strengthening me. It was cold down there, and the air was thick with dust. I stood in the middle of the empty room, staring at the concrete walls, trying to remember. I could almost hear their voices, their cruel laughter echoing in my head. "You're weak, Sajja. Pathetic. You'll never amount to anything unless you break." The memories of their training sessions were hazy, fragmented by the trauma I had endured. But there was something else down here, something important. I walked to the far corner of the basement, where an old cabinet stood, covered in cobwebs. It had been untouched for years, long forgotten by everyone in the house. I pulled it open, revealing a small, locked drawer. My heart raced as I fumbled with the lock, my fingers trembling. It clicked open. Inside, buried beneath layers of old papers and forgotten trinkets, was a single object, a small wooden box. I held it in my hands, my pulse pounding in my ears. It was just as I had remembered it, a simple, unadorned box with no visible markings. But I knew, deep down, that this was the key to everything. Kieran had to be part of this, whether I liked it or not. He had been searching for me all these years, ever since we were separated. And Nyla, she knew more than she let on. She had to. As I walked down the hallway toward my classroom, I spotted Kieran standing by the lockers, deep in conversation with a girl I recognized from one of my classes. She had the same striking eyes as him. His daughter, I realized. She had inherited his spiritual energy, the same energy that had been a constant reminder of who I truly was. As I approached them, something clicked in my mind. The smell of their energy, the connection between them, it was so familiar, so ancient. And then it hit me. They were related to me. They had to be. Kieran, I called out, my voice steadier than I felt. He turned, surprise flashing in his eyes as he saw me. Sajja, what's going on? I glanced at his daughter, who looked equally confused. We need to talk. Now. We found an empty classroom, and for the first time in days, I felt a sense of clarity. I told them everything about my sisters, about the box, about the fragments of memories that had begun resurfacing. Kieran listened in silence, his expression unreadable. When I finished, he let out a long sigh. I had a feeling something like this would happen. What do you mean? I asked, frowning. He leaned back against the desk, crossing his arms. You and I, we've been connected for a long time, Sajja. Longer than you realize. When we traveled between dimensions, we lost contact, but I never stopped searching for you. I stared at him, the pieces of the puzzle slowly falling into place. And you didn't come after me because you told me not to, he finished, his voice soft. You said you'd contact me when you were ready. I didn't want to overstep. His daughter, who had been silent until now, looked at me with wide eyes. Wait, you're saying you're related to us? Yes, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Somehow we're connected. I just don't know how yet. The revelation weighed heavily on me as the days passed. My mind kept drifting back to the basement, to the box that held the answers I desperately sought. But I knew that finding the truth wasn't going to be easy. The girls, the ones who had tormented me, were part of this. They had to be. They knew something, and they weren't going to let me uncover the truth without a fight. But I was ready now. For the first time in years, I felt a spark of determination igniting within me. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. This was about reclaiming my life, my identity, and I wasn't going to stop until I had all the answers. Chapter 9. A Growing Storm. The days began to stretch endlessly as if time itself was mocking me. I found myself caught in a web of questions, half-truths, and fragmented memories, each piece clawing at the edges of my mind. The box from the basement sat in my room, untouched but ever present, a reminder that answers were within reach, just out of grasp. My training had intensified in those nights of solitude, my body moving through familiar routines, while my mind replayed the new revelations over and over again. School, oddly enough, had become my escape. The dull rhythm of lessons and chatter of classmates dulled the noise in my head. Yet, even there, things were shifting. Nyla, usually distant, seemed to linger around me more often, her questions masked as casual observations. Kieran and his daughter, Lyra, also found ways to insert themselves into my days, as if silently agreeing to watch my back. I sat under a gnarled tree on the edge of campus during lunch one day, staring at the sky. The clouds churned, dark and heavy, a storm threatening to break at any moment. Lyra joined me, uninvited but not unwelcome, holding a paper bag with what looked like her half-eaten sandwich. You're quiet, she said, breaking the silence. I glanced at her, raising an eyebrow. I didn't realize I had to entertain you. She grinned, unbothered by my tone. You don't, but I'd rather sit with someone brooding than deal with my physics homework. Thank you for listening to this part of the Shadows of Silverston. If you're captivated by Sajja's journey, the unfolding mysteries, and the powerful celestial elements, there's so much more in store. Continue the adventure by grabbing your copy on Amazon through the link in the bio. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more readings. See you next time. Happy reading.